welcome to everybody, and thank you for joining us today. I appreciate you taking the time, and hopefully today you'll be able to take away a bit more insight around SketchUp and what it is actually capable of, and specifically SketchUp Studio in an office renovation workflow. So just a couple of things on the agenda, some house rules, nothing too serious, but just to keep things moving swiftly, an introduction about Building Point and a little bit more about SketchUp and who we are and Building Point, as well as the site survey method, which our guest speaker today, Joshua DeBrain, will be taking you through a SketchUp Studio demonstration, followed by Trimble Connect and collaboration. And then finally, any questions that you might have following the session. Lastly, how you can connect with us on social media, and that will bring us to a close. So just onto the house rules. The webinar will be recorded, so if a colleague misses it or you do want to revisit the webinar at any point, it is going to be sent to you after this in a link, so you can definitely catch up on that front. All guests, if you wouldn't mind, please muting yourselves for the time being. It'll just be myself and Josh who are unmuted. And also, please put your videos and cameras off. That just makes sure that the video runs smoothly and that there is no lagging on the webinar. And then you can post all your questions to the chat bar or the chat room during the webinar, and we will definitely attend to them at the end of the session. And then finally, the floor will be opened at the end for vocal questions. Okay, so a little bit of an introduction. I'm Jessica Blythe. I'm the Business Development Manager at Building Point South Africa. I specifically manage the SketchUp portfolio. So I believe that at some point in time, you may have already chatted to me via email or phone call, and hopefully going forward, I will be the person you talk to about all things SketchUp. So yeah, Joshua DeBrain, who is our guest speaker today, he is the principal architect and founder at JDB Studio. We are super lucky to work with Josh on several SketchUp projects. And what really keeps me entertained are exciting LinkedIn bios, and Josh's is one of those. So just his quick bio: multifaceted maverick, spatial design architect, an unorthodox thinker who formulates strange ideas and solutions to work better, the kind of ideas that just make sense when you hear them, but oddly never occurred to you or anyone else on your team. So Josh is going to be jumping in a little bit later, and you can be sure that it's going to be a really insightful session from him. So just a little bit more about Building Point SA, and we are actually a subsidiary of the holding company Optron Group. And within Optron Group, there are 4 different subsidiaries. Optron, which specifically services the geospatial and the positioning industries. Vantage SSA, which looks after the agriculture industry and specifically precision technology in that space. SciTech SA, which has technology systems that specifically cater to the heavy civil construction contractor. And then finally, Building Point South Africa. We are the sole distributor in Sub-Saharan Africa for the Trimble Buildings portfolio. And obviously, our goal is really to provide industry-leading solutions that are engineered for the building construction industry. We sometimes see our products broken down into, I guess, 3 different areas, but these products really do appeal and are being utilized across the AEC sector. So within the field technology side, we have layout technology, 3D laser scanning, augmented reality and mixed reality solutions. Under Tekla Structures, Tekla Structural Designer, and Tekla TEDS, that obviously focuses a little bit more on software for structural workflows and building analysis. And then finally, the hero product for today, SketchUp. It's the 3D modeling software in the AEC sector. Obviously, a lot of us historically know it within the architectural sector, but it is definitely a versatile product that we are seeing increasing across the board with different professionals. In terms of who's actually using SketchUp, well, you might be surprised to know that SketchUp is the most widely used 3D modeling tool in the world. Each year, more than 41 million professionals use SketchUp to bring their creative ideas to life. And this, again, as I've mentioned, spans across architecture and engineering to product design and retail design. But we are seeing on an annual basis sectors like construction, interior design, commercial interiors, engineering, all growing at a rapid pace for those utilizing SketchUp. SketchUp in the design and build lifecycle, I think one of a really exciting slide for me, just because it provides a snapshot of how SketchUp does serve across the different design stages. And it definitely accelerates the design process in all senses, from concept and modeling and visualization to stakeholder collaboration and construction documentation and beyond that. There's growing improvements as year-on-year releases happen to improve each of these aspects of SketchUp. But a really great thing about today's webinar is that we are going to be touching on quite a number of these, specifically Scan Essentials, Desktop, SketchUp Desktop, 3D Warehouse, V-Ray, and Trimble Connect. So in terms of the commercial offerings that are currently available, I'm not going to go into these in too much depth, but the current packages that are available are SketchUp Go, very much tailored to design and collaborate anywhere. It is the entry-level SketchUp subscription. And as the name suggests, you can use it absolutely anywhere because it's based on SketchUp for web, as well as and you can use it with SketchUp for iPad. Personally, a favorite of mine, 3D Warehouse, where you can basically have a library of searchable pre-made 3D models that work seamlessly on SketchUp. SketchUp Pro is the most utilized or most commonly utilized package for professional work. And in addition to everything in SketchUp Go, it has your SketchUp for desktop layout when you're taking models from 3D to 2D, Extension Warehouse, which really is hundreds of extensions that can help you bring your model to life. And then the AR and VR viewers. Well, if you really do need a wow factor for your customers, we are seeing that these SketchUp AR and VR viewers are becoming more and more popular. And finally, the most comprehensive package available is SketchUp Studio. It is for advanced workflows. It has everything in SketchUp Go, plus your Revit importer, Scan Essentials to really create those accurate point clouds and bring that data into your models, and then finally V-Ray rendering. We do understand that SketchUp is in wide demand across the continent, and we service Sub-Saharan Africa. So we have expanded our reseller network, and we are always on the lookout for new resellers. But at the moment, as it stands, we have 6 resellers, one in South Africa, iRender Design Software Solutions. In Gaborone, Botswana, we have CAD World Solutions. 2 in Kenya, ADCC International and HiCAD, and then finally 2 additional in Nigeria, Costech Computers and OAS Technologies. All these reseller listings are on our SketchUpAfrica.com website, so if you do need to contact them directly and you do want local support on the ground, they would be the first people to reach out to. And that brings me to pretty much the background as to who we are and what you can expect from SketchUp. I am really excited that Josh is going to take us through his SketchUp Studio Office workflow. So with no further ado, I'm going to hand over to you, Josh.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jess, for that introduction, and welcome to everyone on the webinar for today. Thank you, Building Point SA and Optron, for the opportunity to present this. Today, I would like to take you through 5 facets of the client that we're going to showcase you today. It is a real-life project. We're currently in the states of implementation of the interior fittings. And so for today, what we'll do we'll break down the client itself so that you understand a little bit to what was requested of us for this specific project and how the client functions in this space. We'll talk about the site survey, the SketchUp office design within all the SketchUp tools. Just a reminder, this webinar is to show you and demonstrate to you the differences between SketchUp Pro and SketchUp Studio. So we're not going to go into detail of a lot of the SketchUp tools itself. We're merely showing you the workflow. And then towards the end, we would like to show you the V-Ray basics, as V-Ray is a wonderful, complex and very depth tool. We can't go into its full depth. We want to show you a little bit of its overview capabilities. And then we're going to talk about Trimble Connect, the way to virtually collaborate around the world. So let's start with the client onboarding for today. And you can see here that we are looking at a client by the name of Pure Group, South Africa. They've been around for about 15, 20 years now in South Africa, importing and manufacturing fashion items. They service a large part of South Africa's fashion industry with the development of clothing. Their head office is in Durban. They have a factory, warehouse, an import storage section at this building. And for this overhaul that they wanted to do of their head office was to look at 2 floors across the front of the building. And that's what we're going to take a closer look at. Pure Group as a group also works within real estate and development. So this is just one of their properties. Now, what you see here is a supply drawing that we received when we wanted to start on this project. And so during the early stages, before we go to site to survey the actual building as it was in existence, we got these architectural drawings from a previous supplier or from a previous phase of the building, let's say 10 years ago, that showcased us what the potential renovation plans were. So at this stage, it was really important to see were all the measurements taken correctly. What was suggested on this drawing was not what the client wanted. And so we wanted to start with a clean slate, but also not waste this information that we had access to. So that takes us to the survey. So in actually visiting the specific site, here you can see a wide range of tools that we like to use. So first of all, of course, our trusted Stanley measuring tape. Of course, you can really rely on a tool like this. It is extremely accurate. The only inaccuracy might be that with different temperatures, of course, steel will expand and contract, even a measuring tape. So you can take with a 5mm variance, you can take the measurements from a Stanley measuring tape. The other tools that we see and that we're also going to address are more in line with the Trimble Scans Essentials tool. So we can use a LiDAR camera either on an iPad or on a third-party product photogrammetry scanner like this Matterport camera or one of Trimble's own scanners. We can use that in Scan Essentials to create a point cloud model to draw from what we saw on site. And then, of course, for any specific photographic detail, we can use a digital camera or a decent phone camera. So I just want to highlight these features to you. Of course, SketchUp Scan to Design that we see on the iPad Pro is a fantastic feature. And you can see for each of these tools, the measuring capability that's given to you there in meters will give you a good indication for what you can use on various sites. So, measuring anything with a Stanley tape, you can do that very effectively from 5 to 50 meters. The iPad, I would use it room by room, and then the 3D scanners you can scan complete buildings with. So how this measuring workflow came about for this specific site, I just want to show you what the Matterport camera recorded here for us. So here we see a scan that was focused on the interior. You see there's a slight overlap with the foyer entrance and the exterior that it captured. The interior question that the client was really struggling with was the concrete columns and the beams that we see protruding from the ground floor to the first floor were positioned as a secondary fitting. So the building was constructed, let's say 20, 30 years ago, and now it was a different height first level floor. And that height difference was making it difficult on top to use the space efficiently and effectively. And the PDF DWG file that we saw in the beginning was drawn without the acknowledgement of the columns, so that couldn't be used. Now for the first floor, we can see on the next slide how the roof beams sit in relation to that concrete slab. And on the last drawing or the last scan, we can see on the building next door what a finished product can look like. So I'm not sure if on my side it hasn't uploaded. Yeah, there it is. Okay. So this would be the first floor that's finished. So what we can see here is with a 3D scanner, the kind of detail that you can capture that you would normally not see in a floor plan, where we can now see the completely textured floor. There's a few gaps here in this scan, which is reasonable given the fact that this is a fully operational office building. So we did this recording with the office team sitting behind their desks. So that's where you see those gaps. Here's one piece of advice: just ask your client if you can scan a building that is in use in the morning or in the late afternoon when people have left. But this was just one of those size visits where we had to do what we had to do. So you can see those gaps. All right. So from here on out, I'd like to take you into the SketchUp model. I'm going to show you how we can use survey tools that SketchUp has, where we can do sort of a site survey without actually visiting the site. And then from there on, we're going to go into the point cloud, showcase you how that area was recorded and how we modeled it. And then we'll take you through the existing building and the changes that we made. So I'm just making sure, Jess, that everyone can see my screen.
Yep, it's visible on my side.
Perfect. Okay, so here we see that with the Google Maps feature in SketchUp, we can see the location. So for those of you that are familiar with SketchUp Pro, generally under the file menu button, we can add location terrain to our model, so you get a 1-for-1 scale topographic recording, and you could use that to draw the rough parameter of a building or a building site. What's really nice is that in SketchUp 2024, this menu, this user interface has had quite a refresh, and so the detail that's available here and the way that you import context, both 2D and 3D, that quality has been greatly enhanced. Of course, in South Africa, we have to use whatever satellite imagery is available. So you'll see that in the larger cities, there's a lot more context than in the outlying regions. So this site survey, this image that we see here is the location terrain and the location snapshot. So if I turn the terrain layer on, you can see the slight slope up towards the north side, the site, and sloping down towards the south side. So this location terrain detail is one way to start your survey. And the additional detail that we acquired for this site was to use a tool called Google 3D Tiles. If you want to learn more about that, just research a little bit of that on the internet. But a great tool to use is that it basically loads in the Google Earth Pro view, so you get all the buildings in 3D if it was recorded in 3D in the sort of inner city environment. And with the help of a couple of APIs and plugins, you can via Blender import it into SketchUp. So this gives you a wonderful perception of scale. You can see the height of the various buildings that you're dealing with around the site, and of course on the site itself. Now, as you can see, the mesh, the way that the rectangles and the triangles are joined it doesn't look too pretty. So you can take this with a pinch of salt and then some. Your measurements for this would probably be a meter off or on the dot. So here we would get a good understanding of maybe that entrance ceiling with the 2 columns that we saw on the Google Earth image, the photo from side where we could see the front facade, and then we get a bit of an orientation around parking and the way that the yard sits behind the building. So this information and detail we can then use and utilize in some presentations or client meetings where we actually haven't visited the location. So I'm going to turn the survey layer off for now. I'll leave the snapshot on, and then we will turn on the scanning data from the Matterport camera. The Matterport tool is this long menu bar at the top of my screen. I'll quickly turn some other toolbars off so that you can really see it isolated over here. The Trimble Scan Essentials toolbar allows you to load in the point cloud, and the first 3 buttons are used for loading the element in. The second part of the menu is for seeing its visibility. The way that SketchUp snaps to the point cloud, so once you start drawing 3D objects in relation to the point cloud, how do they snap to various objects? And then after that, you can clip your point cloud and even create a ground floor mesh of the total area. So let's start by revealing the point cloud by changing it from the SketchUp only visibility to the 50% point cloud visibility. So you can see here now that there's this rough dotted environment that loads in. And I'll turn the location snapshot off so that we get a little bit of a better contrast. And then we can intensify that visibility. We can basically change the opacity to 75% blending. And if that is not, if that is not enough, then conditional blending allows us to see everything 100% saturated if there's no SketchUp object drawn there. So here we can see really roughly the entrance area, and when we zoom in, we can walk into the space to see those concrete columns. And as you see me navigate, I just want you to pay attention to how the point cloud suddenly thins out while I'm moving the camera, and then thickens when I stop orbiting. This is a wonderful feature within the Trimble software where it reduces the load on the computer for a brief second if you're moving around, and then reloads the full visibility as the camera stops moving. So some of the competitor products don't offer such functionality, and this makes it really useful as point clouds can have so much data in them, and this keeps Trimble software operating really, really fresh and snappy. Now you might find that even this 75% or conditional blending is not sufficient. We can click on the gear icon and we get a sub menu where we can see the point cloud opacity and the point size. So if we enlarge the point size, we will see that the points become a little bit larger. And if I go all the way to the extreme, it looks almost like a complete photograph. Now, because the snapping is turned on to click on the point cloud first, any rectangle or line that we draw in SketchUp, and I'm going to just move my camera towards the wall in the corner, any point will snap to the actual point cloud. So I'm basically drawing a rectangle flat against the wall here. And as I draw that rectangle, I can start drawing out the walls, I can start drawing out the columns, and I can basically snap to all these various shapes and spaces to draw these various elements. And as I mentioned before, the client in this environment was really struggling how to contextually create the interior design with these columns in mind. So a good way to show this point cloud to a client is to ensure that they get a similar view of this point cloud as you would when using some VR goggles or when you would print this out on paper. So a great way to showcase this is under your view menu to make sure that all the hidden geometry and additional features are turned off. just leave your shadows out of there. And then under your camera settings to make sure that your field of view is set up nice and wide. So I believe it's set up to 50 degrees. Yep. So if I change it to 70, you can see that it gets even a little bit larger. So you get a really nice landscape wide view of the space. Whereas normally in SketchUp Pro, your field of view is set up to 35 degrees, which feels a little bit of almost like an isometric flat view. So just keep that in mind. You want a nice wide view when navigating a space. And then with the orbiting and the panning tool, you can then navigate the space and even look around with the eye tool to see the space. So that's a great way to use a point cloud as both a surveying mechanism and as a presentation tool with your client. Now we can see the concrete beams, we can see the columns, we can see the opening towards the ceiling on the first floor and how the beams sit over there. Again, this was a site that was active at the time, so you can see there's a little bit of clipping of a person over there. You can see my shadow while I'm scanning the space. There's rubble and people walking around cleaning up. So all of that plays a part in your data, and you want to ensure that there's as little as disturbance as possible when you record this. Now, as I zoom out, you'll see that it captured nicely the roof here with the beams. So all of that could be drawn in. And as I turn the point cloud off, we're gonna switch now to the drawing we created from the point cloud to reveal the existing building. So this is the existing building on top of the point cloud or joined together. And you can see here how the different surfaces sit interlinked. And you can also see how the point cloud was used to create the overlay with each of these columns, and then laid out both the measuring of the point cloud and the height, of course, of all the objects around it. So any time that you see the point cloud on top of the SketchUp asset, the measurement is either too far to the back or too far to the front. And that's how you can then finalize that everything is measured correctly. So we generally employ a couple of these measuring tools together as control points. So it would be wise to measure out the distance between the various columns with your Stanley measuring tape, then to link it up with the point cloud and check that your point cloud measurements were accurate, and then draw everything in. So if I turn the LiDAR scan off, and I turn it off here as well, then under my existing tags, I can turn off the roof, and you can look into the building, and we can hide the floor so that you see that column grid with all the beams. So this is the existing building drawn in, and you can see we're already starting to see a few of the features and fixtures and floor finishes that we chose for the client for the final design of their office space. And just to give you a little bit of an idea before we reveal to you all the features of the new office design, the main entrance is here at the center. They needed a foyer and a welcoming area up front at reception. Existing sanitary functions were already established at the back, so the plumbing piping was not to be changed. On the left-hand side, they wanted either an executive lounge or a fabric testing room, so that all the new samples that they're importing are visible here. And then on the right-hand side, we would have additional finance and operational offices. And there would be an archival fire safety room here on the right. The existing space that we saw in the scan is where the staircase goes to the top right. So that is not visible in this model, but that would be here on the right-hand side. And then going up towards the left would be the additional first floor space. So for those of you familiar with SketchUp or any other software that uses layers in SketchUp called tags, in the tag folder here, we've created a distinction between the ground floor and the first floor so that we can turn on various layers to reveal everything from the ground up. So for the ground floor, for example, we'll turn on the drywalls, we'll turn on the glazing, we'll turn on the lighting to start with. So here you get a better idea of the room divisions and the subdivisions between the office, the foyer, and that fabric room. And so it's easy for the client to understand, with the furniture turned on, what the space will look like and how it's utilized. So bit by bit, this is a wonderful way to even demonstrate to a client how the space is used and how that all fits together as a cohesive office space. You'll see that foliage, greenery is generally turned off as a layer. That's just to preserve SketchUp resources when you've got so much geometry visible. Some of the cabinetry here that you saw in the fabric room, and then acoustic paneling in the archive room, because this is, after all, a concrete building, so the sound will ricochet quite a bit. So yeah, you see here the sort of layout that is created. To see here the entrance. There's going to be a wall here once I turn some of the other layers on. For the outside, for example, we can turn on the external signage so that you can see how that takes shapes with the paneling and the lettering. And bit by bit, the client is starting to get a good impression of the design space. So we'll reintroduce the first floor, and then without further ado, I will open up all the layers for that space. So you can see here what everything looked like. Then from the existing layer, we will turn back on the roof, and I'll position the camera here on the first floor. So you might recall from the webinar invitation, there was a render that was located roughly about here, and this is the area where that render was placed. So what I want to demonstrate you in the last bit of the webinar inside SketchUp is how we came to this design element, this render. So for now, you can see the upper area with the lounge and the office space behind it. And of course, throughout the various scenes that we have here at the top, we can use SketchUp Diffusion as an AI enhanced rendering tool. So very early in the process, before we even get to SketchUp and the V-Ray plugin, we want to demonstrate to our clients that we have a wonderful visual impression of what their space is going to look like. So we have the different scene elements visible here. We can go to enhance that if we change the style of this drawing as it is. So we can go to our basic styles and we can turn edges off and profiles on. We can go to our shadow settings and we can use the sun for shading, turn that on and off. We can play with the time of day and the part of the year to get a different focal point of our lighting. And then a wonderful feature released also as part of 2024, and I'm sure you've seen it on social media, is to use ambient occlusion. So under our view menu, we can go to face style settings and turn ambient occlusion on. You can get this wonderful depth perception where in every cavity, every nook, every cranny, where there's some sense of gravity, some sense of material meeting another material, either vertical or horizontal, that shadow line is enhanced. So now it looks quite fluffy. We can turn profiles back on, perhaps edges. We can see how all of that interlinks to create that visual style. So if we go to the specific face settings, in this specific style, there's a submenu here for our ambient occlusion. And we can either enhance the intensity by dragging the slider across, or we can lower or make larger the distance that ambient occlusion is used. So we get quite a dark drawing if we enlarge the intensity and the distance together. And to whatever spectrum you want to use this, you can play around. So let's get a little bit more of morning light in the scene. Even though the roof is closed, we can see how the shading is changing. And however warm or cold you want this to look, you can then play around with the overall lighting and the ambient occlusion turned on. So that is all visible to us before we even get to the V-Ray toolset. SketchUp Diffusion, as it is in this submenu icon here, offers us a wonderful way to generate AI images of the scene in front of us. So it will load the specific scene as a flat image, and it will preserve this geometry while it's creating those AI images. Now, I'm not going to demonstrate the tool itself, but I'm going to take you back to the scenes that we saved before this webinar to show you what those images look like. So see, this is the image that was on the webinar, and these were 2 additional images to show some slightly different material choices. So we see a lot more leather here and a lot more brown. Here we see a lot more gray and a different system ceiling. So turning the edges on and off, we can either see the full photogrammetry diffused image, or we can just see the SketchUp model again. So that is that's a great way without having to put serious time into rendering for that area. And now let me find myself again in the drawing. What I want to show you is a feature in V-Ray, and for us to load that function, it will take a few minutes. V-Ray is like driving a Ferrari or a very complex engine that you've never opened up yourself as a mechanic for the first time. So V-Ray comes as a very large tool set. You can see the 4 menu bars here at the bottom that you use to create these renders. And rather than the one-click solution of ambient occlusion or SketchUp diffusion, there are a lot of sub-menus and details that you can use to create a true photorealistic image. Now that is great, and it will take anyone somewhere from 2 to 3 weeks of intensive training to a couple of months to systematically learn this while you're working in the office. But a great step up from the SketchUp diffusion or the ambient occlusion feature is to use V-Ray Vision. So what V-Ray Vision will do, it is this button over here, is it will load in the whole scene as if it is already being rendered. So it will be a real-time visualization. So we're going to load that in, and it will just take a second to, well, it will take 1 or 2 minutes to actually load all the geometry, and then we will see that real-life preview. In the meantime, while that is loading, I'd like to hand over the screen sharing to Jess, and we're just going to go back to the presentation for 1 or 2 more things that we'd like to discuss with you. Okay, so one of the additional benefits or one of the additional features that SketchUp offers, especially in the studio license, is the collaboration of the different projects that you work in. So for now, as I said, the Pure Group as a South African entity gets funding and has shareholders across the world. And as you can see on the map on the left-hand side, although we are based in South Africa together with this building, one of the shareholders is in Taiwan, and some of the financial management team is based in Singapore. So we were able to use Trimble Connection we used Trimble Connect to create a connection with our clients overseas, and used this collaboration tool to highlight what the model looks like, how the space is going to operate. And then the client could connect with us either through the renewed feature within SketchUp 2024, either via a direct link. The link can then be used on any machine. So whether it's your mobile phone or your desktop computer, it basically opens up SketchUp for web, and then the web viewer in your browser is being used to view this model. You can also, with long-term client, give them their own Trimble Connect account so that they can log into their specific client user profile and have access to all their projects or properties. And then the little pink clouds are basically our areas of concern. So you can see in the fabric room where all the fabric can be laid out for display, there were some issues with some of the storage elements. The client wanted to move the TV in the lounge at the back, from the back wall to the left wall. On the far right in the finance and management office, there's actually a double door that leads into the factory hall. We had blocked that off. Unbeknown to us, the client actually wanted to keep that in situ so that the management staff can also access the factory floor. And then as we go to the next slide, you'll see the glazing for the staircase needed some refinement. So this is currently the in situ photos of where we are in the building process. These photos were taken about a good week ago. So again, the staircase railing is missing. We can see the window frames have been put in place between the different columns. Some of the ceiling lighting has been installed, and the floor vinyl and wood laminate flooring is in place. So all of that is currently happening. And yeah, just take a snapshot in your head of what this looks like, and then I'll screen share for you what this looks like in V-Ray Vision. I'll share my screen one last time, and then we see here that indeed it took about 2 minutes or so. V-Ray Vision is now this sub window, this additional window on top of the actual SketchUp window. And what you can do if you have multiple monitors is, of course, in your client presentation, open up your SketchUp model on the one, together with your video feed, and then on your other monitor display V-Ray Vision. And in that manner, you can then have a live view of the space. So if I, for example, now go back to SketchUp and rotate my view, it will update that in V-Ray Vision as well. So you can see it starting to rotate with me. So it does that in real time. Of course, it's doing it a little bit slow at the moment because I'm also sharing my video feed with you right now. But this feature already is starting to give you a lot more depth, a lot more reflections and refractions that you wouldn't be able to see in the plain SketchUp view. So for now, I'm going to spend 1 or 2 minutes describing to you how even in V-Ray Vision we can already use some advanced V-Ray rendering tools without having to dive into all the submenus that V-Ray offers. So by simply clicking on the information button, there's a little navigation and environmental control pop-up. And this describes in very short commands what you can do to change the scene. So we're going to focus on the environment controls. For example, if we press the letter X and we move our left or right mouse key, the up, down, left or right, it affects the position of the sun and its intensity. So let's hide that information menu. And of course, recollecting that down the staircase, the opening to the building is on our right-hand side, the sun will have an impact on this upstairs space. So I'm going to press the letter X. I'm going to move my mouse from left to right, so that you can start seeing the differences as the sun rotates through the space. And we're just going to move the mouse up and down so that we get that afternoon look and feel. So you can see it's starting to get darker. And now the sun sets and it's basically evening. And if we move the sun back, we get that sunset moment. And then we can get all the way back to sunrise. So if we stay on that sunset moment, as I'm dragging my mouse up, we can then also rotate the sun and change its intensity. So that it has an effect on the scene and the reflection in the windows. If we do the same thing with the right mouse button, we can then change that position and intensity as well. So all of that plays a role in creating an exterior scene or an interior scene of this kind without having to go into the depths of these menus. You can also turn the ambient occlusion on or off so that we only get the V-Ray lighting that sits in the armature, the long lights that sit above every desk. When we turn the ambient occlusion and the exterior lighting back on, we get this wonderful warm imagery. Then some of these other tools allow us to export the V-Ray Vision render as a single image or as a walkthrough animation without having to go into the depth of the rest of V-Ray. So right out of the box, this makes V-Ray a really accessible tool and gives you a much higher degree of quality and customization and ability than either diffusion or ambient occlusion can give you. So let's close this for now. Thank you everyone for watching this demonstration. Thank you, Jess. Let me hand back to you.
Thank you so much. I'm just going to share my screen again. Please let me know when you all can see that. I think we're on the where we are now slide. Go. Yeah, I think thank you so much, Josh. Really, really interesting case study, local case study based in Durban, and really just fascinating to see the collaboration across the globe and how easy it can be. And obviously, I understand, V-Ray, the expanse of it. It's a really depthful product, so it's great to see that in use and what you can do with it. So thank you so much for that presentation. Yeah, I think we can open up to any questions that the audience might have. Please feel free to put your microphone on or pop any questions in the chat bar if you'd prefer. And I guess I would also just kick us off, Josh, with a question around, I suppose, training and learning. I mean, you've said that it does take time to learn things on the V-Ray, but just in terms of learning SketchUp, what do you recommend, from your side and your experience of learning it?
Yeah, certainly. I think between SketchUp Campus and people like myself, you can easily learn SketchUp through video or an interactive format with a trainer. And SketchUp really takes things from the ground up. So you can draw your first shapes and objects really simply. And for more complex things that you're not aware of, you can easily use the 3D warehouse to download various models. So for example, the demonstration that we did today, all the office furniture and the cabinet fittings came at some point out of the 3D warehouse and were either used as is or were customized. So the SketchUp might take you 1 or 2 weeks to learn the basics, and it might take you a couple of months to get to some really extreme user cases and have some precision elements that you would like to show other professionals or various clients. But it is it's a wonderful tool to get started with and really quickly see how each tool set can manipulate the 3D space that you're drawing in.
Awesome, thank you. Are there any other questions? I don't see anything in the chat bar at this stage. Is anybody else? Please raise your hands. Any questions? Feel free to ask them now. We do have a few last slides, but want to close off on questions just before we get to that. I don't hear anything coming through, but obviously if you do have any follow-on questions, feel free to pop them through to myself and I can filter them down, either answer them myself or filter it down to Josh. I did also want to cover off our last few slides on the social media side of things and how you can reach us. Please do give us a follow. We're on all the socials, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and our website, Building Point SA and SketchUpAfrica.com. So follow all of those for the updates. And I also just wanted to give a massive thanks to Josh for taking us through this presentation today. Josh also does offer consultative work around SketchUp and specific projects. So again, you can reach out to me or reach out to Josh via his social media. That is his LinkedIn, his website, and his Instagram profile. So give him a follow. And I think that brings us to a close. We do have one last slide, I think, Josh, to throw you in the deep end there. I know you had a few more tools that you may or may not, want to go over. This is just because in case we had a little bit of extra time. So, Josh, maybe you can highlight a couple of things that I guess for you are really critical in your workflow. Before I do, sorry, I do see there is a question. Is documentation or construction drawings for the project done through SKP layout as well, or is that more challenging for a larger project?
Yeah, so to answer this question, Craig, we did indeed use the SketchUp tool to create the 3D building and the various drawings. This client requested us to create drawings that were suitable for the furniture installer and the light fitting specialist. So we created some simple section cuts to show the interior of the ground floor and the first floor, and then did most of the dimensions for the interior space. But there were no construction drawings other than perhaps for the staircase. If at a further stage we host a webinar around layout, we might reuse this project or any project of that kind to show you how SketchUp and layout interact. I think it's helpful to say at this point as well that SketchUp and layout have for a few years been lagging behind perhaps in speed, and layout was oftentimes very slow to operate on larger projects. But in the latest graphic engine updates that Trimble has done within the software, it is extremely fast. So the vector drawing of objects in layout is really quick and efficient. And there's even a draft mode where in these larger projects, you can zoom in and out to set up your drawing space. And by zooming in and out, it actually retracts the detail of the drawing, similar to what you saw us do earlier with the point cloud. So that also really helps.
Thanks, Josh. Craig, I hope that answers your question. Any other questions out there that you might have? Please pop them into the chat bar. Josh, we do have a couple of minutes left, so maybe we'll just share my screen again. You can go through that last slide if you like. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is more about the Studio JDB ecosystem. So within the work that we do, these are the various tools and apps that we like to use. So pop a question in the toolbar or in the chat bar if you see anything that you're unfamiliar with that we could explain. But I think that SketchUp in essence, as you see in the bottom left, is a bit like a Leatherman or a Swiss pocket knife. It can do so many various things if you know which tool to take out of its assortment. And apart from the fact that we are fervent coffee drinkers to steam through the day, there are all these wonderful apps and pieces of software and plugins that we use to enhance our workflow. So point cloud scanning is one of them. Using the Insta360 camera is a wonderful way to get an immersive view of a site if you are videotaping it and walking through it. We prefer to use the Google toolset. Some people, of course, are on Microsoft. Apart from SketchUp's own scan to design tools, Magic Plan is a really simple tool to create 2D floor plans, and the Scanner 3D app is a wonderful way to create point clouds or even mesh scans of smaller objects. And then, as technology is advancing, I think over the next year we'll be seeing a lot more within SketchUp and within the world of AI enter the workflow. So it's a thing that we're constantly using on the side as a tool to sort of parallel to our normal workflows operate with, and see how it sometimes can speed things up or give us enhanced creativity when we're perhaps not mentally as available as as the AI tool is. And then if you want some productivity workflow enhancements, if you have a thing like a standing desk, or you use certain mice and controllers, you can take a look at 3D Connection to enhance your SketchUp experience. So that's it from my side. Again, thank you for attending today's seminar, and thank you, Jess.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everybody. Hope you found this insightful. And again, reach out if you do have any questions at all. The recording will be sent to you.